In 1991, history ended, or at least so we were told. The Cold War was over, the Soviet Union had collapsed, liberal democracy and free market capitalism had prevailed. Political scientist Francis Fukuyama called it the end of history, not because events would stop, but because the ideological evolution had reached its final destination. Liberal democracy, he argued, was the highest and final form of government, the system to which all others would ultimately converge. To be fair, Fukuyama's argument was more subtle than the slogan suggests. He didn't mean that history itself would stop, but that ideological evolution had run its course. Communism had collapsed, fascism was discredited, and no other system seemed to offer a serious rival to liberal democracy. Fukuyama also acknowledged that setbacks were inevitable, and in his later works he would reconsider how identity, nationalism, and inequality could threaten liberalism from within. But in the early 1990s, few doubted his central claim, that liberal democracy had no global alternative. And for a moment at least, it seemed he was right. Countries across Eastern Europe embraced democracy. Global institutions, from the United Nations to the World Trade Organization, appeared to usher in a new era of cooperation. U.S. power was unrivaled. Conflict, many believed, would be replaced by commerce, and globalization, it was believed, would knit the world together. But what if that victory planted the seeds of its own undoing? What if the very triumph of the liberal order bred the hubris, the disillusionment, and the backlash that now define our world? Because 3 decades later, we find ourselves asking very different kinds of questions. Why democracies are in retreat? Why are global institutions gridlocked and under attack? Why are great power rivalries returning? Why do so many people felt left behind by globalization? And perhaps most unsettling, was the post-Cold War order an enduring system or just a fleeting moment? So in this video, we're going to trace the rise and the unraveling of the liberal international order. We'll consider the foundations of the post-Cold War liberal project, including its core institutions, values, and assumptions, the internal contradictions and external challenges that begin to erode the order from 9/11 to the 2008 financial crisis. And we'll ask whether the end of history was ever a reality or just a convenient narrative and a brief moment of U.S. dominance. Along the way, we're going to connect these developments to international relations theory, especially liberalism and its critics, and set the stage for understanding the forces shaping global politics today. In the immediate aftermath of the Cold War, the United States stood alone as the world's sole superpower, a moment that columnist Charles Krauthammer famously called the unipolar moment. For the first time in modern history, global politics lacked any serious peer competitor. The Soviet Union had collapsed, China had not yet risen, and the United States, with its unmatched military, economic, and cultural power, found itself in a position of extraordinary influence. This moment wasn't just about power, it was about purpose. U.S. foreign policy elites, from liberal institutionalists to neoconservatives, believed that the world could now be remade in the image of liberalism, open markets, democratic institutions, human rights, and multilateral cooperation. According to John Eikenberry, the liberal international order, originally built by the United States and its allies after 1945, expanded into a global system after the end of the Cold War. The order was led by the United States and based on 3 key pillars. Economic liberalism, including open markets, free trade, and neoliberalism rooted in the Washington Consensus, was supported by a dense network of institutions, the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, among others. A global security system rooted in U.S.-led alliances through NATO, collective security through the United Nations, and democratic peace theory, and a global political community committed, at least in principle, to liberal democracy, the protection of human rights, and the promotion of the rule of law. During the 1990s, the global mood, at least in the West, was strikingly optimistic. Former Warsaw Pact countries rapidly embraced democratic institutions. NATO and the European Union expanded eastward, peacekeeping missions multiplied, the internet exploded, and capitalism went global. Many saw this as a confirmation of Fukuyama's thesis. Liberal democracy and capitalism weren't perfect, but they were the only game in town. And international relations theory mirrored this confidence. Liberal institutionalists argued that cooperation through international institutions was not only possible, but increasingly inevitable. Democratic peace theorists posited that democracies rarely fight one another, a theory used to justify democracy promotion around the globe. And neoliberal economists insisted that open markets would lift all boats, tying states together in peaceful interdependence. The assumption was clear. If we built a world of democracies and interdependence, we would build a world of peace. Of course, the cracks were there even in the 1990s. The Yugoslav wars shattered the illusion of post-Cold War peace in Europe. The Rwandan genocide exposed the limits of humanitarian rhetoric. Protests against the WTO and the IMF, most notably the 1999 Seattle demonstrations, foreshadowed a growing global backlash against economic globalization. But for many in the West, these seemed like outliers, not signs of deeper structural problems. In retrospect, though, the unipolar moment was just that, a moment. It was a time when liberalism appeared ascendant, and the West believed it could shape the world in its own image. But beneath the surface of unipolar optimism, powerful fault lines were forming, and over time, they would crack the very foundations of the post-Cold War order. The first major blow came on September 11, 2001. The United States responded not with multilateral diplomacy, but with a unilateral global war on terror. The invasion of Afghanistan in 2001 initially drew broad international support, but just 2 years later, the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, launched without UN approval and based on false claims about weapons of mass destruction, undermined much of the liberal order's legitimacy. What was once framed as a rules-based international system increasingly looked like a system of rules for others, power for the West. The next major rupture came with the 2008 global financial crisis. Triggered by reckless speculation in U.S. housing markets, the crisis quickly spread around the globe, revealing the fragility of an interconnected global system. Millions lost jobs and homes in the United States, Europe, and beyond. And austerity measures, often imposed by the IMF and the EU, deepened recessions and social unrest, particularly in Southern Europe and across parts of the global South. People began to ask, who really benefits from globalization? Liberal promises of prosperity and interdependence suddenly rang hollow. Meanwhile, the very institutions that had once symbolized liberal international cooperation began to falter. The Doha round of WTO negotiations collapsed. The UN Security Council was deadlocked over Syria and Ukraine. The International Criminal Court was accused of neocolonial bias, targeting African leaders while ignoring Western abuses. Climate change agreements faltered as well. Kyoto failed, and Paris remains fragile. In short, the credibility of global governance eroded just as global problems, climate change, pandemics, cybercrime, demanded coordinated responses. Even allies grew skeptical of U.S. leadership, and countries like China began creating parallel institutions, like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the Belt and Road Initiative. In much of the global South, the liberal order was never fully embraced. Many governments and scholars saw it as an extension of Western dominance, promoting neoliberal economic policies that often deepened inequality while marginalizing non-Western voices in global decision-making. As frustrations mounted over issues like debt, trade fairness, and climate equity, calls grew for a more inclusive, multipolar, and even decolonized global order, one that reflected a broader range of interests, identities, and histories. At the same time, authoritarian regimes began to reassert themselves and liberal norms came under renewed pressure. Russia rejected the liberal order openly, invading Georgia in 2008, annexing Crimea in 2014, and backing Syria's Assad. China embraced capitalism but rejected liberalism, promoting its own model of state-led authoritarian capitalism. Strongmen leaders rose in democracies, Erdogan in Turkey, Modi in India, Duterte in the Philippines, Bolsonaro in Brazil, and even the West began to backslide. As we consider in another video, the populist backlash hit the US and Europe with full force. The COVID-19 pandemic offered a brutal test for global cooperation, and the results were mixed at best. Vaccine nationalism undermined solidarity, wealthy countries hoarded doses, leaving low-income states behind, misinformation flourished, fueled by distrust in institutions, and the World Health Organization was politicized and weakened. Far from uniting the world, the pandemic deepened global fractures and accelerated the shift away from Western-led globalism. To be clear, the liberal international order was never a monolith, but in the last 2 decades, its core assumptions about democracy, globalization, cooperation, and U.S. leadership have been thrown into crisis. Some call this a decline, others see it as a transformation. Either way, the world we now inhabit is very different than the one Fukuyama imagined in the early 1990s. Over the last 30 years, the liberal international order has moved from triumph to turbulence. It began as a bold vision, a world of peace and prosperity made possible through democracy, free markets, and order established through multilateral cooperation. And for a time, it looked like that vision might just stick. But that world, the one imagined in 1991, has slowly unraveled. The war on terror shattered trust in liberal norms and institutions. The 2008 financial crisis revealed the vulnerabilities and inequalities of globalization. Multilateral institutions stalled or lacked credibility. Democratic backsliding, not just in the global south, but at the very core of the liberal West, occurred. And crises like COVID-19 and climate change have exposed how limited global coordination has become. This leaves us with a pressing question. Was the liberal international order ever a stable foundation, or merely a fragile exception in the long arc of history and politics? As IR scholars, we don't have to agree on the answer, but we do need to understand the consequences of this unraveling. Those consequences came from two directions. First, within the liberal order itself. The anger, inequality, and loss of faith from the 2008 financial crisis and endless wars fueled a potent populist backlash. At the same time, this internal crisis created an opening for an external challenge, the return of great power competition. We'll explore these two dimensions in the next couple of videos. But that's it for now. As always, please leave any questions you have in the comments section below, and thanks for watching.